Once upon a time, in the heart of Enugu city, there lived a woman named Ndidi. She was the owner of the most luxurious daycare in the whole of the southeast. Everyone who had a child wanted to register with Ndidi's haven. The building stood tall like a palace, painted in bright baby pink and sky blue, with white cartoon animals painted on the gates. From the outside, it looked like a wonderland. The children wore custom uniforms and used golden spoons to eat their meals. Parents believed that the children who passed through Ndidi's haven always turned out exceptional, fluent in English, smart in class, and always topping every competition. It was a dream come true for every mother who wanted to give her child the best start in life. But no one ever knew how Ndidi did it. Her face was always smiling, her voice soft like pap, and she wore long flowing gowns that made her look like a fairy godmother. Her nails were always short, her hair always packed neatly into a scarf, and her eyes, oh, her eyes, were the kind that always looked tired, but full of secrets. The children loved her, and the parents adored her. But beneath all the beauty and peace of Ndidi's haven, something dark was crawling quietly, something no one was allowed to talk about. Every child that passed through her daycare grew up brilliant and successful, yes, but at exactly 25 years old, something happened, something no one connected to the school. One boy disappeared while crossing the road on his 25th birthday. Another girl fainted on stage while receiving an award in front of the whole country, and never woke up again. Another was found sleeping in his car, but never opened his eyes. And another went mad, laughing and screaming in circles during a birthday party. Nobody linked these things together, because the parents had long forgotten about Ndidi's haven by then. But one woman never forgot. Her name was Ozioma. She was a mother of twins, and the only parent who ever withdrew her children from Ndidi's haven midway through the term. She had seen something. She never said what. But after that day, she packed her children and fled from Enugu to a small village in Ebonyi. Nobody ever heard from her again. People laughed at her, called her paranoid and dramatic. But Ozioma never returned. Years passed, and a young mother named Amaka enrolled her son, Kosiso, in the school. She was a rising interior designer with a growing reputation in Abuja, and her husband, Ndidi, was a banker. Their marriage was the kind that people posted about on Instagram: perfect house, perfect outfits, and perfect smiles. But their son was their greatest joy. When Amaka heard about Ndidi's haven, she was overjoyed. Finally, her son could mingle with children from good homes, and receive the best care possible. She paid the school fees in full, even though it was more expensive than her rent. She didn't care. She wanted the best for her child. At first, everything seemed fine. Kosiso came home every day speaking in British accent, reciting poems, and singing songs that even Amaka did not know. He began drawing complex diagrams and solving puzzles without help. Amaka and her husband were impressed. But something started to feel strange. Every time Kosiso mentioned his teacher, Miss Uju, his face changed. He would grow quiet, his eyes darting like a lizard on a hot wall. Amaka asked him questions, but Kosiso always smiled and said everything was fine. One day, she saw him crying in his sleep, murmuring words that made no sense. She asked him the next morning, and he denied it completely. Still, Amaka didn't panic. Children are always dreaming strange things, she told herself. But the dreams continued. Kosiso started speaking words in a language that Amaka had never heard before, words that sounded ancient, like they belonged in a shrine. One night, he sat up from sleep and whispered, "She is watching me." That was the day Amaka knew something was wrong. She went to the school the next morning, determined to speak with Miss Ndidi directly. But the receptionist told her that Madam was not available. She only speaks to parents at the end of term, the receptionist said with a smile so wide it looked forced. Amaka pressed further, asking to at least see her son's classroom. The receptionist told her visitors were not allowed beyond the front office. Amaka left quietly, but her spirit was loud with worry. She returned home and called her husband, who told her she was just being paranoid. "That school is the best," he said. "Don't ruin this for our son." But Amaka was not convinced. She began to dig. At night, while her husband snored beside her, she stayed up with her phone, searching online for anything about Ndidi's haven. Most of what she saw were glowing reviews. Mothers praising the school. Fathers posting pictures of their children in the school uniform. Nothing negative. Nothing strange. But something didn't feel right. She dug deeper, scrolling through old Facebook posts, LinkedIn profiles, anything that had a link to the school. That was when she saw a comment on an old post from 12 years ago. It was a simple comment under a photo of a graduation ceremony. The post was full of emojis and happy parents. But the comment stood out. It was written by a woman named Ozioma. "If you love your children, take them out now." That was all she wrote. There was no reply. No one even liked the comment. It looked like it had been hidden in plain sight. Amaka clicked on Ozioma's profile, but it was private. Her heart pounded as she took a screenshot and saved it. She needed to know more. She showed her husband the comment, but he waved it off like a fly. "People say all kinds of things online," he said. "Don't let one comment ruin the future of our son." But Amaka knew better. Her instincts were rarely wrong. The next day, she decided to pick up Kosiso early from school. She arrived quietly, pretending to be sick, and requested her son. The receptionist smiled again and went in. When Kosiso came out, he looked surprised. "Mommy, we were about to do quiet time," he said. "Miss Uju doesn't like when we leave during quiet time." Amaka looked at her son and nodded. "It's okay. You're coming home with me." As they drove home, Kosiso sat in silence. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Mommy, what happens if I forget my true name?" Amaka almost crashed the car. She pulled over and turned to him. "What did you say?" Kosiso blinked. "Miss Uju says we must not forget our true names, or we'll be lost." Amaka's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Her heart beat faster than a drum at a village festival. She turned on the ignition and drove straight to a church. She didn't care if people thought she was mad. The pastor they met was a short man with a booming voice and a big Bible. He listened quietly as Amaka explained everything: Kosiso's dreams, the strange behavior, and the odd statement about true names. The pastor asked to pray for the child, and as he laid hands on him, Kosiso began to scream. His voice was not his own. It was deep, hollow, and chilling. "I am marked," he screamed. "She has taken my name." Amaka collapsed on the floor, crying uncontrollably. The pastor prayed harder, sweat pouring down his face like rainwater on zinc. When it was over, Kosiso fell asleep. The pastor turned to Amaka, his voice low. "This is deeper than I thought," he said. "You need to find a woman who made it out alive. She's the only one who escaped." Amaka knew it must be Ozioma whom she saw her comment on that post the other day. Her hands were still shaking as she watched her son sleep quietly on the church pew. The pastor handed her a bottle of anointing oil and whispered, "Cover him with this every night. And whatever you do, don't let him close his eyes in that school again." That was all she needed to hear. The next morning, she drafted a message to the school saying Kosiso would not be returning. The receptionist called her immediately, speaking in a voice that no longer sounded cheerful. It was calm, too calm. "We understand your decision, Madam Amaka," the woman said. "But do remember that once a name enters our book, it cannot be erased." Amaka hung up and blocked the number immediately. That day, she told her husband everything again, this time with no filters. But Nduka still refused to believe her. He said she was going too far, dragging their child through church drama and fear. He even threatened to take Kosiso back to the school himself. That was when Amaka knew she had to act alone. She turned back to her phone and searched for Ozioma again. The profile was still locked, but she noticed something new, a tagged photo from a page called Ebony Women's Cooperative. The page showed a woman holding 2 young boys, smiling in front of a cornfield. Her face was older now, but the name under the caption read, Ozoma Uwokwe, our beloved sister. Amaka didn't waste time. She reached out to the page, pretending to be a journalist working on a story about exceptional mothers. It was a risky move, but it worked. Someone replied, giving her a contact number for Mama Ozioma. And just like that, the doors to the truth began to creak open. Ozioma's voice was heavy with age and caution when she finally picked the call. At first, she didn't want to talk, but the moment Amaka mentioned Ndidi's heaven and the true names, the line went silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "You have a smart child. You need to act now before it's too late." Amaka begged her to explain. And slowly, Ozioma began to talk. She said that 14 years ago, her twins, Chimdi and Chizim, were enrolled in Ndidi's heaven. Everything seemed perfect at first, just like Amaka had experienced. But the twins started changing. They began drawing strange symbols, speaking in unknown languages, and talking about people who were not real. One day, Chizam told her, "Mommy, my name is not mine anymore." Ozioma didn't understand what it meant, but she felt it in her bones that something had been taken. She tried to pull them out of the school, but strange things began to happen. Her husband had a terrible accident that left him paralyzed. Their business collapsed overnight and her house got burned down by an unexplained fire. It was as if the moment she resisted, the world around her started to fall apart. But she didn't stop, instead she ran. She packed her children and moved to a quiet village where no one knew her name. It was there that she met a spiritual elder who told her the truth, that certain institutions were more than what they seemed. That some names carried power, and that in some places, names were used as currency. Ndidi's heaven is not a school, Ozioma said over the phone. It is a farm. Amaka's throat dried instantly. A farm, she repeated. Yes, Ozioma answered. They don't harvest your children's lives now. They plant seeds. And when the child turns 25, the harvest comes. That is the contract. Amaka pressed her hand against her chest, trying to slow her heartbeat. She asked how she could break the link, how she could save Kosiso. You can't do it alone, Ozioma said. You need to find the Namekeeper. That was the first time Amaka had ever heard that name. The Namekeeper, Ozioma explained, was a man who lived deep inside Obigu forest, a sacred place few dared to enter. He was old, nearly forgotten, but he was the only one who could retrieve a stolen name and restore it to the rightful owner. He was said to have once been a powerful scribe who wrote names in the ancient books of destiny before he disappeared from the world. Some say he was cursed. Others say he walked away from the world because of its greed. All that mattered to Amaka now was that this man might save her son.